people, some unscrupulous politicians, are trying to poison the mind of our community, especially the minority, by saying now that you have got a black majority government, you are going to lose all your rights, your houses, your schools, your jobs. Now, I must apologize for using the term colored because I know some of you do not want it to be addressed as colors. And I want to apologize for that, but I want to remove the fear from this particular community, which is known in the policy of this country as colors. And I want to say, you have nothing to fear from this government. You are a very proud community, part of our nation, that we love from the bottom of our heart. I want you to be part of the majority, not minority. And I want you to accept my word of honor that you are part and parcel of the population of South Africa.
In South Africa today, there are approximately 4 to 5 million people who, under the racial distinctions created during apartheid rule, were defined as neither black nor white, but as coloured, and are still classified as such under the current ANC government. The use of the term coloured in South Africa is much different than its use in the US or the UK. It represents a mixed race identity encompassing a diverse group of ethnic ancestry, which may include Dutch, English, Malay, Indian, and others. But the majority are of Khoe San heritage, the indigenous First Nations people of South Africa. Clinging to President Mandela's promise of a free and equal society for all its citizens, the coloured identity is every bit as imperiled under the current ANC government as it ever was under apartheid, still caught in the middle. In the middle between black and white. In the middle of a long fight to assert an identity that their own nation and the world will respect. Caught in the middle of a nation's struggle for its very soul.
Suffering has a black skin. How am I to be now that I'm made of glass, and my words have no sound except for those uttered in a past? Sometimes I'm black. When politics parodies a truth and quantity is king, sometimes I am black. Sometimes only in the vaguest sense do I have a history, a memory, a cultural reality. Easier to keep me in the dark. Easier to talk about the Indian Ocean slave trade as if it were one of the stepsisters. Easier to say that I almost suffered, am almost one thing, not quite another. Somewhere between here and there, between 1994 and the present, I was lost on the periphery of a South African story because if memory serves the historical themes, it seems my people were never participants in the resistance, never marched, never fought, never died.
begin. Yeah, there's a lot of memories. A lot of stuff happened to our people in the struggle, you know. And a lot of people, they don't understand when I'm talking about these things. And it makes me hard so sometimes just to think that we was in the struggle. Come and raid my house, they take my books and my stuff away. So after a time when the police come again and they look my house, there's nothing. I hide it up there behind the board. Got plenty stuff of the history of apartheid, the history of the struggle, grassroots, UDF papers, Mandela stuff and all those things. Those things were all bad. They're more than 25 years now. That stuff is up there in the ceiling.
1989?
1989. A lion has fallen, yeah, that's it. You see? You see, it's all my documentations. And this was, you see, this was in our hall, Elsie's River Hall, Dr. Donor, Golding, Chantay Haynes, there's also, and others, you see, all of the struggle, people of the struggle. It's me and Mandela. He was visiting Elsie's River. I was a candidate for the ANC of the first local government elections. This is about my athletics, my diplomas. This was a medal they gave to me for the best athlete in South Africa. I was an athlete, I was fit, you know. I used to train 200 Ks a week. When I was in the struggle, I had a big flag, one of the biggest ANC flags. And on Fridays, when I come from work, I take the flag, I ride right through the white areas. And wherever I take the flag, the cars of people were wood. I said, Viva ANC. The ANC was banned that time. They could have killed me. The Boer could have shot me. I took a big chance to do that. We had a workshop on the 28th of February 1988. Executives, all we had workshops of different stuff, you know. Education to serve needs of the people. Democratic control over political powers. Living wage campaign, hands off Kasatu campaign, anti-election campaign, campaign to release political prisoners. We call it Freedom Park or Freedom Place. This is a place that we come together, the time when the comrades were fighting against the regime. And most of the people that were living in these houses, they were part of the struggle. Wherever we see a Casper, we throw him with stones. And when the Casper see us, they shoot us and they beat us with some box. But that didn't stop us from fighting against these people, this regime. A
community which has struggled like ourselves. They paid the highest price for the liberation, the freedom that we enjoy today.
Amatla, how are you? Amatla, how are you? Hey! And most of the meetings took part in my home. The Youth, Women's League, ANC League, and all those sport organizations, they come to my home. You'll be surprised that 3/4 of this Elsie's was part of the struggle here. In the new South Africa, everything is just one-sided, man. Because the time when Mandela died, there was no history of our so-called colored people. We was part of the struggle. Our people have died here. If the students have give up their education, they didn't know Mandela, but they want to release Mandela. The ANC of today is quite different from that time's ANC. The ANC that I know of that time was Oliver Tambo, Joe Slovo, Busak, Tutu, Cyril Ramaphosa, and Chris Hani. In the 80s, and I ran that morning from here right to Mitchell's Plain, I run to be on the launch. And most of our so-called colored people support that UDF. You see, it wasn't an organization, it was a front to fight apartheid. Husak, okay, and Chris Nelson, Tala Omar, Johnny Issel, Ibrahim Patel, Rasul, but mostly were so-called colors. But at the very moment now, our people are confused. They don't know for who to vote. The political parties have disappointed us very much, even economical, sport, schools. Our schools are overcrowded, you know. Our people are losing their jobs, you know. Gangsterism are rife in our area. Drugs is rife in our area, you know. And now the people ask me, Mr. Brown, for who do we must vote?
Coloured anomaly, forcibly removed survivors of slave ancestry, and by degree, I'm the not so bad of progeny. We won't omit you completely, we'll just play with the lighting, so it won't look so frightening. Pieces of a story, just enough said so you go quietly to bed. Citizen not quite black. Ek is mos verkoop teen my manskap. A government wat alweer praat van equality and freedom. Maar hier is die ding, die vinger wys verby daar waar ek bly. Is nie so bad of nie. Maak nie saak hoeveel gangsters en drug addicts is nie. Het kom nie van die struggle nie. And is by definition not defined as an apartheid crime.
There's a sound I hear from the mountaintop. Cries Africa. Oh, the birds singing, the wind is blowing Africa. Oh, Africa. There's a sound I hear from the mountaintop. Cries Africa. Oh, the birds are singing, and the wind is blowing, yeah, Africa. Oh, Africa.
I'm Rushay Booysen. I'm from Port Elizabeth, South Africa. I'm doing a photography project, basically portraits on colored faces. It came from the frustration of me when I go to America, when I go to Europe. People want to tell me what my history should be, you know, which is frustrating. They want me to identify with their struggle. So the idea behind my photography project is to talk to the world about my community that I come from. Labeling in America is so different in South Africa, and the dynamics of the struggle of the people are also so different. So black American is totally different from black Africans. You take the one-drop rule, right? In America they say one-drop rule, if you have a drop of black, you're considered black. So let's take that rule in Africa where the dynamics is the opposite. You'll find that you are still the other, right? So anybody that transports from America that comes here, a lot of times they're like, oh, we're black, right? But they don't understand identity, they don't understand culture, they don't understand language and how these things play an important role in an identity of a people. So the colored community is not just black and white. You know, we are black and white, but there's also Chinese, there's also Indian, there's also Filipino. We are just the descendants of the indigenous, the Khoe, the San, the Khoe, everybody, you know, Indian, everybody. So we are that mixed match vegetables, you know. This is all part of a larger area called the Northern Areas, and it was an area created for the colored community at that point when apartheid was still, you know, part of South African law. A lot of my family, they came from South End, Fairview, that is where they used to stay, until, you know, the government came and bulldozed the houses and sent people to central areas, basically dividing different racial groups into, you know, different categories. There's a rich history because a lot of people that was at the forefront of the war against apartheid and discriminatory laws come from this region. You know, we have Jake Schervel, who comes from this region. His brother lives 2 streets away from me. We've got Dennis Brutus, who's world renowned, known for his fight. You know, so this area historically it carries a lot of value for us. You know, for our generation, for our people. So I don't know, progress in this area. There's not a lot of progress happening. There's people that's lived in this spot, Mission Vale, for over 30 years that is still living in shacks. You know, they're still waiting for houses, even with the new government that we have in place. Drug abuse is one of the worst that has overtaken. Gangsterism has increased, you know, because there's joblessness. You know, when people are idle and people's avenues are being cut off, you know, people are going to find alternative means to make money. I don't have to even go a street away to talk about how these social issues affect, you know, our community as a whole. What is causing this to blow up tenfold from what we've seen prior to my youth, you know? What is leading to an increase in young girls abusing drugs, abusing alcohol to make money for social grant, you know, which is nothing, you know, it's not, social grant is not money that you can raise your kids on. I don't know if it is sense of outcast, because this is also not now, this has been generationally for so many years, so many decades. So there is definitely a psychological impact that we have to look as well when we study the community and why are these social ills playing out in my community.
Enough is enough. Enough is enough. Enough is enough. Heeltemal genoeg. As jy moeg van die hele ding.
I don't think the present dispensation are, you know, continuing Mandela's legacy, you know. Tribalism increasing, racism increasing, race quotas in work, you know. But like we said on the ground, you know, we live in a harmony, you know, but their agenda is different from what Mandela's agenda was and what he stood for. Government is preaching segregation, racial quotas. But in our communities, we live amongst each other. You know, we understand that dynamics. So now they are resorting to tactics to divide our nation so that we fight amongst each other. You know, it's 20 years later, we've broken down these walls or whatever, supposedly. Mm-hmm. Like, what will it take for our communities? What is it that still divides our communities?
It's separatism. It's where we stay.
I think it's still
it is still that was big. That was big, and I've said this before. Like apartheid, and I don't like the frustration that we all experience when we go back to apartheid.
Sure.
Why are we frustrated? It's true. It did happen. It's like it did happen. It's still there. The effects are still there. Apartheid is an Afrikaans word that says separate. You know, so separate us. You move the colored people away from the white people so that they're not in danger of the colored people. You move the black people even further away. So what happens? What happens is a colored person has this superiority complex over the black person. The black person sees that and sees, you guys are not one of us. You guys have got privileges that we don't have. This is all like mind games, but it's a reality. But when we sit like this, and when we live in an integrated society, we say we don't see color, but what we mean is we don't see you as a different human being to me. I see your color, but I don't see you as I'm better than you or you are less than me. That's what we mean, you know. But we don't, and so to break that barrier or to overcome that, it'll take a very long time.
As long as we embrace the identity or the definitions that was given to us by the oppressor, will we still be that?
So I don't feel like I have a heritage. I mean, my dad's from Zimbabwe, my mom's from Kenya. I've inherited some sort of bastardized colonial English. I've been to England and won English. I don't really fit in with South African culture. I never really liked it. but I'm here. So what does it mean to be a young person who is here? And how do you define?
I think to come to that is like the greatest thing that I learned and I wish people understand and I'm fighting for every day is Africa for Africans. And for me, I said someone that Africa is just a location. And someone didn't understand. I was like, then if you understand America, it being a location and how I can say if I'm black, white, I'm American and I'm proud. To the point of understanding the race issues that we have here, they have. But it's like an American is able to say I'm American anywhere in the world and not feel like in America I still have to fight to say I'm American. In Africa, African means black. And that's the saddest thing. So if we don't understand that this is Africa, then we have to look into that. And I think that's what we need to challenge. We think race is what defined this country. And understanding that we now the after effects of what happened before, but it's like we have to then break those things down to the next generation.
We have to go back to our grassroots movements. We are relying on the power of the politicians to dictate what will make life for us better. You know, they are engineering us. You know, we should be the engineers of our society. And we should engineer it back to the vision that was, when it was 1994, the vision that was fought up to that point. We have to go back to that vision as a community and not as politicians, because politicians are going to keep screwing us up.
Sometimes I just, you know, I gotta love where I'm from, East Coast, such a beautiful place, sunshine all year round, even our winters are summer, Welcome to the East Coast, Kazima sections, the finest brew, it's so bright, this is where the sunshine is, sea, sand, and blue skies as I cruise by, the newly revived beachfront is looking so fly, it's the perfect day to put some bombs on the fly, you got the stand, I got the cold, who got the beers, let's buy, it's summertime, all the time, degrees don't drop, and just like curry powder, the East Coast is hot, it's hot round here, my brew, just feel the beat, I thought you knew we back here.
I grew up like most colored kids in a household that was not very political or absolutely not political. So I didn't know about the Steve Biko and black consciousness, and I mean I was like the black unconsciousness. I knew there were white people's beaches and there were Indian people's beaches, but why would I even bother about that? I just go to the colored beach, you know. Everything in my life was colored. I was born in a colored hospital, colored section of the hospital, you know. We went to a colored church and we had a colored doctor and we had a colored priest, and I did not know white people whatsoever. I did not know black people whatsoever. We all were very, very different as South Africans. I mean, our version of South African was completely different. White people's version was way different to my version and to everybody else's version. And we felt like we had separate countries, you know, and our turf was our turf, your turf is your turf, you know. Group areas made you feel like your neighborhood was your country. So KZN was a British colony, but as far as I remember, it was never a Dutch colony. But the Western Cape was a Dutch colony, and certainly the Transvaal was a Dutch colony, a Boer colony, Voortrekker colony. So obviously the people that grew up under those colonial circumstances, they spoke a different, you know, the language that was prevalent to them at that time. So obviously Afrikaans was that language, and Afrikaans obviously is creolized Dutch, you know. So it really was created by colored people, you know, because we colored people exist on the fault lines, you know, of society where black meets white and where cultures merge, etc. So you have this cross-pollination and this mixing and borrowing and remixing, and that's where the Afrikaans language was formed. It's very wrong to assume that all colored people have this singular origin story, which is patently false. You know, when we got freedom and everybody was expressing themselves, and you know, pop culture was quite the big thing. And something that resonated with me was that I didn't see colored people on TV or heard colored accents on the radio or anything like that. So I felt very dissociated, like, you know, from mainstream South Africa. I felt like I had no place in mainstream South Africa. And I wanted to create a platform that would remedy that, or create some kind of media structure where colored people could celebrate their own identity and you know, solve their own unique issues. And I started delving deeper into what are the real issues affecting colored people. And you know, a lot of people would identify the symptoms, or it's drug abuse, or it's you know, lack of confidence, or lack of whatever. And I saw that the real issue was we didn't know ourselves as a community, as a people. There were still far too many question marks around our identity. So in order to address that, I felt that we needed media. We needed to be identified and recognized within South Africa and treated like normal citizens, like every other group, you know, like a black person, like a Zulu person, a Xhosa person, Sotho person, Afrikaner. You know, all these people have their own radio stations, they have their own TV shows, they have their own newspapers, there are no questions about these people's identities like they are ours, and people have no qualms about, you know, what, you know, asking questions like what's a colored, who's a colored. Nobody asks what's a white, who's a white. No, everybody else is immune to these kind of questions except colored people. You know, if we're all equal in South Africa, why don't colored people have equal access to state media? Why is there no colored radio station? Why does every group in South Africa have media, have some form of representation, have some kind of media strategy by the SABC for their demographic, for their group, except colored people? I mean, are we part of South Africa or not? It's part of the cause to not have anything. It's we accepting of, you know, being left out and excluded. It's just part of the colored condition. We need to embrace all communities. You cannot dictate to a community how they should identify, how they should not identify. That is disgusting. That I find that to be just the most suppressive and oppressive attitude to have. How can you dictate to a group of people because you maybe have surpassed that stage, or you don't consider identity issues at all or cultural issues at all, therefore you feel that nobody else should explore this facet of the identity. At one time I could confidently say that I was the foremost expert, you know, when foremost expert in colored identity. I was so immersed in this topic, it was everything to me, and I've since, you know, distanced myself, you know, for reasons of sanity maintenance.
Citizen Vasidani, Machiklani, Frik van Pilleroek, met de apartheid spook. And now, 20 years later, left with a democratic hangover and a negotiated new South Africa, I find that not an apartheid crime, ruining the length and breadth of mostly colored youth, filling the gap between yesterday and today with a smell not unlike the underdog. Unity in diversity becomes a travesty if we omit just one UC. But history, it seems, is a commodity, something dressed for a particular emphasis, sold to the appropriate buyer. But it's not that simple, they tell me. There are complexities, if you please. Don't oversimplify. Is it complex to lie? Make over, storyboard edit, till you don't see the one slipping through the cracks, till suffering as one color and prosperity another, and I become the pain you see through, now that I'm made of glass.
It is important that in government structure, everyone must see to it that he is actually represented. And that is what we have done.
As we proceed here, let me just make some few comments also on the last discussion about colored people. I think it's very important for colored people in this country to understand that South Africa belongs to them in totality, not just Western Cape. So this over-concentration of colors in the Western Cape is not working for them. What they should
must go on the great track.
They should spread in the rest of the country. There's a requirement of colors in Limpopo. There's a requirement of colors everywhere else in the country. So they must stop this over-concentration situation, because they are in oversupply where they are. So you must look into the country and see where you can meet the supply. And also, I must say here, even to Turkey, that let's understand that this Employment Equity Act is a very good act in this country.
And Jimmy Manye, who is the spokesman of the ANC, he just confirmed it by telling our people, the colored people in the Western Cape, there's an over-concentration of colored people. You have to uproot yourself, go into other places in South Africa if you want jobs. Now, what does that tell our people? That says volumes to our people what the ANC's policy really is.
Jimmy Manye is 100% right that if the plans under the Employment Equity Act are actually prosecuted logically, the outcome will be the forced migration of colored folk on a massive scale out of their traditional and ancestral home. He didn't understand for a second the implications of what you were saying. This man is articulating a stance that is thoroughly objectionable, unintentionally. It's not because he's a racist. It's the system, it's the environment that guarantees that. Now, if that happens to a man of his intelligence, and he's very highly educated, and he's a gifted person, if that happens to him, as a person of those personal attributes, what do you think is happening to the rest of the South African populace who don't have his education? And Jimmy Manye then absolutely puts it beyond doubt. And remember that he was articulating this as the government's chief spokesman, as the spokesman of the country of South Africa. The Employment Equity Act and the plans under that act, as espoused and put in place by our government in South Africa, guarantees the Jimmy Manye attitude. He's just being honest about it. He's being completely logical about it. That is the outcome. What he was actually saying is you need to go somewhere else where your minority status will be guaranteed. You need to be divested of the dominance that you have in your own land. The justification for that is that they are colored. Because the Employment Equity Act actually defines the coloreds as black. That's what it says. But then in practice, we find that the plans that are implemented in terms of the Employment Equity Act don't treat colored people as black. What government has done is to racialize this and say disadvantaged groups means black people, and then amalgamate all the Nguni tribes under the brand name black, and then also include coloreds and Indians, theoretically, and then we find that that inclusion is completely insincere. And you know, historically, as regards the colored folk, South African history goes back a long way. Colored people have existed from day one. And if you're going to say that coloreds were more advantaged, then I would have wanted to see a very diligent finding of facts on that issue to justify your finding. The government is claiming that it's entitled to now advantage Nguni Africans over colored Africans on the basis of previous disparity between these two groups. We know, for instance, that even under apartheid, black people also actually had an advantage. It might have been a perverse one, where they were actually allocated their so-called own homelands. It might have been politically unpalatable, but in those homelands, they were the bosses. Colored people didn't have that. They were never favored with a homeland where they could be their own bosses. The proof of the pudding is now before us. As in terms of this case involving 9 coloured correctional services officers from the Western Cape. Most of them had been actually recommended for promotion by appropriately appointed panels. And despite that, they had been denied promotion because they were ethnically coloured. So they went to court. And in both instances, the court had no difficulty in finding that this was an act of overt discrimination against them, that they had suffered discrimination. The court did find that these coloured correctional officers had been grievously wronged, that they had been discriminated against. What the court then did was deny them a remedy. That's what's objectionable. It's thoroughly objectionable. Because the Act actually provides for remedies, provides for compensation. There's at least 3 remedies that was open to the court there. And I say this with all due respect to the judges. Apparently did not put the question to State Council. If we agree with you, if the court agrees with you, surely the inevitable, guaranteed outcome will be the forced migration of coloured folk out of the Western Cape, which is their land, their ancestral home. Is this not the spectre? Is this what is not looming on the horizon if we agree with you? And then say, do you really expect the superior courts of South Africa, after apartheid, to have anything to do with this? It's my hope that now that this is going to the Constitutional Court, that the Constitutional Court will ask State Council to please explain itself. This racialized approach to social justice needs to be dumped. That when you're concerned with justice, and justice is represented by that beautiful lady known as Lady Justice, she needs to be blindfolded. You cannot have Lady Justice being concerned with race and ethnic color differences amongst humanity. Otherwise, you're not going to have justice. But that's exactly what South Africa has done. It's taken the blindfold off. Colored people need to mobilize and be militant about their right to be treated as Africans, as South Africans first. Whatever you might want to say about labels like black and colored. To my mind, labels like black and colored are actually irrelevant. What is relevant is that they're humans, they're Africans, they're South Africans. Those should be the jurisdictional labels, platform, table from which everything else flows. Colored folks need to mobilize to say that. I think there's something else going on. I think it's very, very bad. Otherwise, we wouldn't have sentient, wonderful human beings like Rushay and Charles Ash and others, including me, that feel alienated, that feel that we're being treated as the other.
As recognized by the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights and the United Nations Declaration of Rights of Indigenous Peoples, possessing clear, unassailable claim to an ancestral land base is an essential part of a people's identity. Governments who have targeted specific populations for disenfranchisement have always understood this. The best way to effectively rid themselves of an unwanted people in their midst is to remove them from their land base. Once removed, a government can then deny a people's claim to it, forcing them into a shadow existence as non-persons in the country of their birth. The government then begins to tell the world a story that they don't really even exist as a people anymore. The true spiritual and cultural death of a people begins when they and their descendants begin to believe the story themselves. In 1973, near the border of South Africa and Namibia, the apartheid government forcibly removed the entire community of Riemvasmaak from their ancestral homeland. The former residents, descendants of the ancient Khoe and San peoples, were scattered across South Africa and Namibia. They watched as their homes were destroyed and their sacred land transformed into a missile testing range by the apartheid military. After the 1994 democratic elections, President Nelson Mandela and the ANC government made it a priority to bring the people of Riemvasmaak back to their homelands. But after a promising start in the early years of the post-apartheid government, the process of helping people resettle on their native land has slowed to a crawl.
Watter kant waar was van toe het hulle vir Tannie gestuur?
Namibia toe Korrigas toe. Wel weet jy daardie tyd.
Nou kan Tannie vir my vertel van die dag toe hulle vir Tannie hulle voor die tyd gesê dat julle moet trek of het hulle net op julle afgekom en
hulle het baie keer gekom sê ons moet trek gesê ons moet trek maar ons wou moet nou nie trek nie. Ons wou nie getrek het nie. Ek sê dat hierdie man het ons moes getrek, maart man. Nou net 20, ons moet sê 40 jaar was het. En het maar so gegaan. En van die dag wat ons moes getrek het van af, was het gewees. As ons moet beginnen trek, is het die spoorweg wat verspoeld word. Zodanig wil ons nog nie gedrink dat dit gemakkelijk die Here gemaakt het. Elke keer als ons nou moet trek, dan is het die.
Toe julle Namibia toe trek.
My ou vader wat blind was het met my oudste suster getrek en oudste broer en my broer het vooruit getrek met my kinders. Want ek wou nie getrek het nie.
Toe, hoe het Tannie hulle geweet om terug te kom? Wie het vir Tannie hulle gesê? Nou gaan.
Daar was mense van ons wat hier gebly het agter wat vir ons geloop sê het. Dat die regering wil hê ons moet terugkom na ons grond toe. Geboortegrond toe. Ek moet maar sê toe Nelson Mandela uit die tronk uit om toe word en om sê elke mens moet sy grond terugkry. Toe kry ons grond terug, toe kom trek ons terug. Ons is 95 terug. Ek is net bly, ek is op my geboorteplek.
Is die plot waar Tannie op gebly het? Die stuk?
Ons het hier gebly.
Wat kant het Tannie?
Ek het daar onder gebly, daar ander kant hierdie rand. Daar sit 'n breinkop. En onderkant die breinkopjie het ek gebly. Daar is nog baie mense in Namibia wat ook nog wil kom. Die mense is nou maar net gewond daar, die wat nou nie wil terugkom nie, is nou gewond om daar te bly, maar ons wat nie wil daar wees nie, teruggekom. En daar is nog wat wil terugkom. Die regering is nou so stadig op, hoe moet ek sê, met die mense wat nog wil terugkom.
Vertel my van die waterbronne, Tannie. Hulle sê maak jou gezond. Ek het gehoor daarvan.
Hulle maak gezond. Ek weet net nie hoekom gaan ek hier af nie, maar destijds het ons muziek geld gegeven vir die waterbronne nie.
Betalen mense nou aan te gaan? She says those days they could go in by the water without paying. Now they have to pay. And she would like to go in there. But they have to pay. Mama gaan. She will go.
The natural springs at Riemvasmaak are long revered for their healing qualities. While Anna and the other residents were in exile, the apartheid government converted these healing waters into a tourist attraction by altering their natural beauty and constructing concrete pools and separate bathhouses for black, white, Indian, and colored. After 2 long decades in exile, when Anna made her first visit to the Springs, it was like a reunion with a beloved family member, emotional, deep, and healing.
And the skeleton of my ancestors can be seen in the faces of the young. We carve a dubious future at best, but I, like a ghost, will not rest until equal means what it is, and recognition is fair, and suffering has no color. Until I have no more gooseflesh in these modern day prisons of freedom for all, where we create more underdogs for the next struggle. Hoekom gaat ons daar? In 'n blinddoek vasgevang, gemang deur 'n fucked up understanding of identity. Hoe ver continua? Hoe ver aluta? Ek is mos verkoop teen my manskap. 'n government wat alweer praat van equality en vrede, maar hier is die ding. Die vinger wys verby daar waar ek bly. Is nie so bad of nie. Maak jouself hoeveel gangsters en drug addicts is nie. Het kom nie van die struggle nie. And is by definition not defined as an apartheid crime.
This life, you're all alone, don't expect no help. You wanna get to the top, you gotta do it yourself. Don't stop, keep going, just a few K's left. Full skies, red line, never half step. Keep dreaming, keep scheming until you lost bet. There's time left, the only deadline is dead. Don't stop, keep going, trust no one else. You wanna get to the top, you gotta do it yourself.
My name is Jerome Lottering, and I grew up in this community, Eldorado Park. I belong to an organization called Kamisa Movement for Equality. We aim to assist the community with economically empowering the community in order for us to solve lack of housing within this community and the socioeconomic challenges facing this community. Eldorado Park is in the south of Johannesburg. It's on the outskirts of Soweto. This community is predominantly occupied by colored people. The unemployment rate within Eldorado Park is 77%, which is way above the national average of 25%. The current challenges facing the community of Eldorado Park is the unemployment, the lack of housing, the lack of bursary opportunities for our matriculants, and the lack of economic development coming to the community of Eldorado Park. There's a lot of hopelessness. There's a lot of socioeconomic challenges facing this community. Substance abuse is a major problem. There's a lack of resources being sent to this community, because the last time that any development came to this community was probably in the 60s or 70s. But since then, there has been no new developments coming to this community. Everything goes to Soweto. There's a systematic program in place which aims to marginalize the colored people from this community. You can see these are actually Democratic Alliance wards, and the whole community is being punished because they do not vote ANC. Government promised previously disadvantaged communities that everybody should benefit from economic empowerment to make right the injustices of the past. But sadly, government is perpetuating what the apartheid government did to colored people. our young kids are feeling hopeless because when we speak to them, the feeling we get from them is that they have decided to not even apply for government bursaries. There are no job opportunities for our young people, so this is what they have actually resorted to do. Sometimes we find them 3 o'clock and 2 o'clock in the morning scouring through dustbins to find plastic bottles. A lot of our adult people within this community, they don't even apply for government housing because of the situation of the long waiting list, where we have people that's been on the waiting list for as long as 46 years. We are entering Hillbrow Flats. That's the name being given for this flat complex within Eldorado Park, where people have been living for multiple generations in 2-bedroom and 1-bedroom flat units. This is a clear indication of government allowing this flat area to deteriorate, and there's a lot of challenges facing this community. Let's just wait first and see if the people are here. Hi. Let me speak to them first. I'll come out now. Hi. Hoe gaat het? Good morning, family. How are you? Self. What is your name, ma'am?
My name is Annelies.
Your name is Annelies.
Yeah.
Hi, Annelies. And your name, ma'am?
Jennifer.
Are you two related?
Yeah.
What? You are sisters?
Yeah, this is my brother.
And that's your brother? And are there any other siblings living in this flat?
Yeah.
No, brothers and sisters for you. I know these are your kids.
Yeah.
Only the 3 of you are here.
Yeah.
And my wife.
And your wife as well.
And her husband also.
So you've got 3 members of the same family living in a 2-bedroom flat.
Yeah.
Right. So how many in total are living in this flat?
There's 3 in total. And my other sister also 3 sisters.
Ja.
Sy bly glad hier en sy het ook 3 kinders. Omdat daar nie plek is.
So there's 23 people living in this two-bedroom flat.
Yeah.
This flat, who did it belong to initially?
My mother.
Your mother. And your mother, as she's passed on.
Yeah.
She's passed on. So you grew up in this flat.
Yeah.
And now you have children as well.
Yeah.
How old is your eldest child? 21. And your eldest child? 27. And your eldest child? 18. So 27 is the next generation, the eldest of the next generation. 27 years old. So this was your mother's flat. You grew up here. All of you grew up here in this flat. Who's the eldest? Are you the eldest? Yeah. How old are you?
I'm 42.
So you're 42. You grew up here, you're 42 years old. And now your eldest child, who's 27 years old, also lives in this flat.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Have you guys applied for homes, for houses with government? And you have not been receiving any response from them. They have not given you any promise of a house. Through our investigations, we discovered that housing officials actually threw away applications being submitted by colored people. And then a person has to reapply today, for instance. And that puts them at the back of the queue in line to get a house. The development of the different public parks in the Eldorado Park versus the public parks in Soweto. Soweto looks completely different from this community, even though this community forms part of Soweto. But people from here would not use the facilities in Soweto because of a lot of factors, including the lack of transport to get there, the lack of resources to get them to that space. Things are being reserved for people in Soweto, and so-called black Africans, they make it known to colored people that it is their time now, and that colored people should understand that in their view, in so-called black Africans' view, colored people benefited during apartheid. and it's payback time now. This is part of the park in Soweto. As you can see, there's exercise facilities in this park. It's very clean, very well kept, very well maintained. Resources being channeled into black areas versus resources being channeled into colored communities. We are now at Thokoza Park. This is only one of the parks in Soweto, but more or less, most of them look the same. This is an example of what the ANC government can do. That is why we have a lot of animosity between the two groups, where, you know, blacks feel that coloreds are not Africans, coloreds feel that they are not black. That creates a problem between the two groups in terms of how they view each other. Myself, I am from Khoisan and Tswana ancestry, which is two tribes in South Africa. And for me, I am an African first, before I'm anything else. As you can see, we've got some tourists coming to Thokoza Park because why conditions are created for tourism to come here and come and experience how Africans live in their townships. But these conditions are not created within colored communities. It's as if colored people do not exist in South Africa. And this is how the new ANC government is treating colored people within South Africa. This park is not inviting. The grass is dying. There's actually weeds where there's supposed to be grass. Using empty alcohol bottles and cans as toys. Obviously this comes out of rubbish dumps, and our kids must play with these kinds of things for recreation. It's really heartbreaking. Kids are playing here with no shoes on. This is actually not a park. This is a health and safety hazard. But our kids are supposed to play here, and government sees nothing wrong with providing facilities like this and actually not maintaining them. And this is the promise of the new South Africa for colored people.
You see these children here. We are creating opportunities for them which they have never had before. The opportunity for them to learn and to advance. Because out of them, there are going to be ambassadors. There are going to be premiers of provinces. There are going to be deputy presidents. There are going to be presidents.
Hi, my name is Chantay Haynes. I'm from Elsie's River, Cape Town, South Africa. I was born in 1990, the year that Mandela was released from prison. In 2007, I graduated from high school, and I had this plan of applying for a bursary from the government and start to study psychology and planning my future. So I had big hopes and dreams. But when I got there, they told me that there was only 8% of bursaries available for colored people. And because we are such a large population of colored people, like we are 65% colored people, there was bursaries available, but it wasn't for us. Then I decided to just go and find myself a job, and that was also hard to do because of the 8% thing that's going on. I actually felt very crushed. My dad has his own business. He's got his own glazing company. Like, he doesn't get the work. Like, the jobs all goes to people that's connected to the people in the offices or the black people. So he's out of work for 3 to 4 months sometimes, and he has to struggle and get whatever he can. My dad, he always tried to tell us that whatever we have to give. Like, even if it's a little, we have to share. Like, we were brought up that way. So even if there's no food in the house during the week, he will make sure that on Fridays there's a pot of food for the people around, even if he has to go and ask the brokers or the walkers along the street if they have food to put in the pot for the people.
Good morning, dear.
Good morning, how are you?
Grace of God, first class.
Yes,
Sister.
that's right.
Once a month we go out to a community called Freedom Farm. It's a squatter camp in Belhar where we go and feed people there. My mom's cousin lives in Freedom Farm, and my parents were their children's foster parents for almost 13 years. And the first time I went there was when the children came and asked my parents if they can come and live here. When I first saw the place, I was like, we are poor, but they are like extremely poor. There's nothing for them like over there. There's not really shelter from the rain and from winds and stuff. My parents, in 2007, they decided that they're gonna register their organization and go out there and feed the people. You'll find young children that can't afford to be in school that will come with their bowls, because we will be there sometimes early in the morning, give them porridge or whatever to eat. So they would come up and bring their bowls, and bowls will be dirty because there's no water to clean the bowls. You can see in their hands and their feet there's no like stuff for them to clean themselves. People still today talking about maybe things would have been better if Mandela was a little bit younger and was still our president. They would always say like they wonder if things would have been different, if the speeches and stuff that he made and said, if it was only to get the people's votes back then. A lot of coloured comrades of Mandela's that fought with him, that struggled with him, that's been hurt and bruised, still up until today, and they're still in the same situation. They didn't benefit out of anything. They're still where they are today. If you walk into these communities and you see the older people, and you see like on their faces, you'll see that they are disappointed and they feel like there's just no future for them. Okay. Yeah, I've got a lot of questions and a lot of things I wanted to ask him. Yeah. I vaguely remember my parents going to vote, and I asked my grandma because she couldn't go anywhere. So I asked my grandma like, what is it all about? And she told me that things are gonna change and things are gonna be different for our people. So she told me how they used to fight and how they couldn't go places and how they were, how people used to treat them. But she never told me that, like, there was this thing about the coloreds and the blacks. She always told me that there was the whites against them. And she told me how they used to fight, and her parents used to fight against them and to get their freedom. When I look back to that moment and I look at things right now, I always wonder, like, did he know? We fought with him, and when he came out, he said we're all going to be treated equally. And we've seen ourselves as all black people, and we never thought this day would come when they would tell us that we are colored and we are worthless than them. That's how I feel. The time when he was alive, did he notice these things? Was he aware of these things? It's just hard for me to still have this where my kids are gonna grow up, still have to worry about the color of their skin and how they're not gonna fit in this world and how they're not gonna get a job because of what they look like. And I see many people looking hopeless and they feel like, why did we fight for all this?
When they come to ask me who these people are, the ones whose roots lie fibrous and convoluted beneath the surface, these people whose histories fall untidy onto pages, these people whose histories fall off pages, out of memory, into ectoplasm, I will tell them your name and your name and yours. When they come to ask me who these people are, yes, I will tell them your name and your name and yours. I will say your name so loud, the earth will split her tidy lips and the sky will fracture her seams. I will scream you up into each crevice, so blush of you falls on all that is breathing, on all that is holy. I will say, he was here, and she was here, and he was here, and she was here. I will take my sinewy tongue and spell your true names on the rapture of my skin. I will write you a proud voice in the hearts of babes, on the walls of caves. I will name your presence, speak the music of your births, your deaths, your desires. I will play it out across the arteries of time and make you a monument beyond any stone or wood. When they come to ask me who these people are, I will say, these are my people. They are your people. They are all people in one people. This is my blood narrative to you.
Makhawe na makhawekazi sihlabathi, sons of the soil, she calls you, cries for her beauty, wishes to embrace you, I'm an African. Afraid.
Open eyes, awoken by your voice of gratitude. Spoke inside, thank the Most High. My soul survived, televised news reports in the AM. Another soldier died. Bulletins of bodies riddled with bullets inside. Turn it off, no cynical views. Lasagna, we love live it, but most of us are in it confused. Mulattoes like I'm a colored, not an African. Acting in ignorance, subliminal conflicts. Constricts abroad in mind, cordoned by walls with electric fences. Never shocked by current affairs, the dark continent. Mother my tears, my verses marked as monuments to adorn when they muffle my mouth or cover my ears. The truth stays audible, my roots stay my oracle, like granddad that passed flesh. No salt tracks on my cheeks, my soul wept and still weeps after your death. Storyteller, what's the story in your death? I miss your narrative, the fleshly source of my rapping gift. It happened quick, sick, swift departure from this liberty. But it's a new day, I'm an African with liberty. Lyrically, set my text free from World Bank, debt free, debt free.
Addressing issues of journalists, selected portraits of magnified views. Universal press articles, combined constitutes on a two line of my divine attitude. More than babies born in trees, tales of infants born marching in infantries. Decent feminist structures exist in between young people with murders twice their age. The world news is a terrorist.